Okay, so headline here is CNBC. Jeff Bezos hired this Amazon applicant on the spot. And here are two of the interview questions that he asked. And this is fascinating stuff, and you'll understand why. All right, so I'm going to read a little bit more than I normally do. I'm not sure who the name is. I'm trying to find the name of the person. Anyway, it doesn't matter because it's written by a writer, Ann Hyatt. Okay, so here's what happens. So he gets a call, and he says, hey, Amazon recruiter calls him and says, come back for a final interview. So what the candidate didn't know is that it was Jeff Bezos. So he shows up. He thinks he's in for his final interview, and it's the same hiring manager. He's in the office with Jeff Bezos. Okay. So he goes in, and Bezos looks at him and says, I'm only going to ask you two questions. And the first one's going to be a fun brain teaser. So he takes a deep breath, stands up in front of a whiteboard and says, I'm going to do the math, but I want you to estimate the number of panes of glass in the city of Seattle. Can you imagine that question? The number of panes of glass in the entire city of Seattle. So anyway, he calms down and he goes, I realize that he wanted to see the way my mind works. He wants me to break down a complicated problem into small steps. So how do I do that? He goes, okay. So I outlined how I would start with the number of people in Seattle, which I correctly guessed as around 1 million, just to make the math easier. Then I said they would each have a home, a mode of transportation, and an office or school, all of which would have windows. So I suggested that we base the estimate on averages of those, and then we did the math. We got down into every possible scenario, group anomaly, and ways to account for these exceptions. I felt like I talked it through for hours while Bezos filled the whiteboard with numbers. It actually took about 10 minutes. I remember feeling a thrill when he wrote down the final estimate, circled and said, that's about right. He then asked me the second question. What are your career goals? I'm not going to read what he said, but he went on to basically say that even though he had no idea how to be a great assistant, the role that he was applying for, that he knew the importance of getting outside of his comfort zone. Bezos appreciated that. And by the end of the interview, we realized that I would be a really good junior candidate. The big takeaway, grit, ambition, and energy is always more valuable than a specific skill set. Now, why do I share that story? As I said, I love when we get stories that take us into a moment of tension. Because if you get asked questions like that, here's the big takeaway. The candidate stayed calm. And instead of just trying to rattle off an answer and sounding like a politician who's had one too many vodka martinis, trying to talk his way through something, he has no idea what he's talking about. He paused. He thought through the scenario. He said, what's he looking for? And that little bit of pause and pondering allowed him to start to think, and he processed his way through it. And Bezos wasn't looking for a quick explanation. He was looking for some interaction to break down the situation and to see, is this person a critical thinker? How do they process problems? Fascinating. And then the second question is all about a personal answer that has to come from you. It can't be boilerplate. It can't be, I'm just going to say all the buzzwords. No. It's got to be personal. And I think that's what I want you to hear. In those moments of tension, and they're going to be in the interview because it's a high-pressure situation. As I've told you many times before, relentless preparation leads to reflexive performance. Thinking through how you'll handle a question that you're not sure initially what the answer is. That could prepare you for that type of question, that first question. Thinking through, why do I want to be here? What do I want to tell them about me and the mission and how it's in alignment? Those kind of things allow us to win and to win big. So that is what you do in an interview. It's a wonderful, wonderful example. Stay cool, stay calm, and be real.